Well, welcome back, folks, to our next installment of Catching Up, where we have a chance to catch up with some of our great Georgia icons, legends, Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame members. And today, joining me is part of the class of 2022, actually the sole member of the class of 2022, Lee King. Lee, how you doing?
Hey, Darren, it's nice to see you again, and I'm honored that you asked me to meet with you today.
Oh, of course. We really appreciate you joining us today. And Lee, you've got an amazing tennis story, maybe a little bit different than some of our other Hall of Fame members, but equally important and interesting. Um, you started as a young girl playing tennis. Can you talk about maybe the influence of your mom Anne had on you and how you got started playing and what she meant to you in terms of you getting into the game?
Absolutely, absolutely. So my mother was from Florida, and she played what they had of college tennis in Randolph-Macon in Lynchburg, Virginia. And she always tried to. There's three girls, I being the youngest. Tried to get us out on the tennis court. I was more of the athlete tomboy, so I was game for any type of activity. And she would take me out there with a bucket of balls and hit with me. And we had a standing lesson at our club on Saturdays at 10 o'clock for different family members. And my sisters, who were 4 and 5 years older than I was or am, weren't interested at all. So I ended up taking all of the lessons, which was great. And then, I did when at the time, probably in the late 60s, early 70s, when I did these drill groups, really it was mostly boys. So I was almost always the only girl in the drill group, which I was quite comfortable with because I knew nothing else. And it helped me to be able to get used to different power and how to control power and what to do when somebody hit the ball hard. And so it probably benefited me in the long run. But mom was she was my coach, and she took me to the Southern Circuit uh, tournaments probably since I was 8 years old. She took me to all the required tournaments, like Macon, Georgia, and I think there's one in Mobile, Alabama, and different closed and open Southern tournaments. And she warmed me up in the mornings. She made sure that I had a good breakfast. She was really she was a great little coach, and I just appreciated it. And there was a point when obviously I got better than she was, and she was a club player, a high club player. And she turned me over to, well, one of them was Jimbo Howell, Richard Howell's youngest brother.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
Jimbo traveled with me to the 12 and under nationals. I was sort of his protege. I would go to their family home here in Atlanta. They had a tennis court, and he would drill me 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 times a week to get ready for tournaments. And that was all my mother's doing. She was very good at locating different pros at that time that worked well with young girls. And gosh, Gary Groleman, Lee Frozen, Jack Waters. Um, there's Bill Kopecki used to hit with me. I could go back but she
Yeah.
was always finding people to hit with me to always get better. But and then we played mother daughter when I got to be about 13. So I probably played, um, let's see, 1973, 74, 75. So we probably played 3 or 4 years together. And we were number one in the South. We were number one in Georgia. And we went to the Nationals. And it was quite an eye-opening experience for me to see. I was usually one of the younger daughters. And sometimes my mother was probably in her 50s at the time, or maybe even late 40s. And some of these mothers were in their 70s and 80s, and they would kill us.
Oh yeah.
They were just very, Dodo Cheney being one of
Right.
them. She really
Sure.
took it to us. I didn't even know who the woman was until after, she cleaned the court with us.
Yeah.
And
So you
mother tried
lost
to
0 and
tell me,
0. Right. Right.
exactly.
Right.
So she played with her daughter, who at the time seemed to be about 50, but she was quite good herself. But we did the mother daughter, and then I played. I played 1 year of basketball and tennis in college, and then a full scholarship became available at College of Charleston. So that would be like 1978, and So I did that. They first gave me half scholarship, and then once I did, basketball, tennis, then when I decided just to do tennis, they had one available, which was great. So I played there. We went to the nationals all 4 years. I was down at the bottom pretty much. I played some singles, but mostly doubles. But we just had a very strong team, and I was honored to be on the team. And then so that was my mom, and she would come to my mom and dad would come to whatever matches because most of them were in the South,
Right.
and they were lived in Atlanta and would drive to Clemson or Spartanburg or University of North Carolina or wherever we were playing, and usually come watch the matches. She thoroughly enjoyed watching tennis and then me playing. So it was wonderful to have such supportive parents. It really was.
And that was an interesting time because when going to your college experience, memory serves me correct, Title IX had just been passed, right?
Yes, yes,
And opportunities for females from their athletic ability and their academic excellence were starting to become more prevalent, and that's a great thing, and it continues today. That must have been exciting, right? When College of Charleston said,
it
"Hey, we want
it
you,
was,
and
and it
we're
was.
going
I
to
think
pay
we
you.
were.
We're going to pay you before NIL. We're going to give you your
Yes,
education. Just come play
and
tennis."
it was. I think, Darren, if I'm not mistaken, we were in AIA my freshman year.
Okay.
So I don't even know if you remember that, but
Yeah.
that was and then we switched over to divisions and all that. But I guess I'm not sure how that
Were, were,
qualified, but we
were
did
you
switch over.
AIAW?
But it
AIAW?
say it again.
Were you
NAIW,
AIAW?
yes,
Yeah, that was the
I
original
think so.
women's. Okay, right,
Like my freshman year, and then I'm not sure if what changed, but something changed during that period of time,
right, right.
and I'm not
Well, it's
sure
not
if
your job to know
we
that. It's your
became.
job to hit play. Yeah.
It's exactly. But
Right.
we had five women's teams at the College of Charleston that went to nationals between the volleyball, basketball, um, sailing, tennis, and there was one more sailing, and I think that was it. I think that's
Okay.
what I'll say. There's one more, but I can't remember what it was. But we had a very strong women's sports program at the time, and Joan Cronin was my coach, and she went on to become the athletic director at the University of Tennessee.
Right. 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 And
Yeah,
she
so that was an
obviously,
honor to have her.
yeah, had a legend working under her for a long
She was
time. So
great,
at
yes.
Tennessee, I don't think we
And
need to say the
mother
name.
and
Everybody
mother
should
and
know who that
Joan,
is.
yes. Well, some people won't, but mother and Joan, I think both played some. At that time, it was called Junior Vet Circuit, and they played and knew each other. And Joan was a big part of the reason I went to College of Charleston.
Wow, it's great. What a great story. Back up a little bit. Obviously, you had college success, but uh, Deion Sanders became famous, right? Coming to Atlanta and
Yes,
playing two sports. Uh, you might have beaten him. You played five sports in high school, if memory serves me
yes,
correct, right?
yes, I
So,
did.
yeah, amazing. Do
And
you have a favorite one?
here's
Not going to put you on the spot. Do you have a favorite other than
no,
tennis?
I did not. At the time, if they if they had let me play soccer, we didn't have women's soccer then. I would have played on the boys' soccer team. I just wanted to play as many sports and be exposed to as many sports as possible. So uh, Pace Academy sort of recruited me as they were starting more of a sports program, women's sports program. They had a really strong debate team and maybe fine arts, but they're trying to get some sports in there. So when I went in there, they said, as long as you keep your grade point average up, you can play as many sports as you want. And my coaches worked with me, and it just worked out that I was able to play five sports
Wow.
for 4 years, and I had a blast. And I will say, probably basketball was probably my favorite, but my parents nixed it as far as playing in college. They said you can't make a career out of it. But then when I got a scholarship to college, they had to sort of say, and I'm sure that the tennis coach and basketball coach said, we think a scholarship will be available by next year. So that's one reason mom let me play basketball, but she never wanted me to play college basketball.
Interesting.
But I was pretty good. And I feel like I really enjoyed it because it was something completely different from tennis. But then, of course, I chose and went down to one sport, which was a smart thing to do. And I'm glad I chose it. But I, I did enjoy college basketball and high school basketball very much. It was quite a fun sport, and and I ran cross country, which
Right.
is like a basic thing. It gets you ready for any sport. And
Right.
then track I did, and then volleyball and tennis. So those were my sports. And like I said, if they had let me do, we didn't even have women's lacrosse. I probably would have done it if we had it. If
Right.
they'd had women's soccer, I would have done it or tried to. But
Oh,
I was limited as to what I could do. And I did play. I did make the boys JV basketball team before they had a girls team, and there's a big to do about it. And we got enough signatures to have a girls basketball team, but I had
wow.
to try out for the boys team in high school, and I did make it.
Wow.
So my mother never intended on me playing, and she told the coach that. She said, if this will make, if this is a foot in the door for the rest of the girls here, we'll do it just to make it a point. And it was in the Northside Neighbor that I tried out and made the team.
Interesting.
So the school really didn't have a choice but to say, let's get some signatures. If we've got 18 women that want to play girls basketball, we'll start a team. So we did. And we went to state the first year.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Great
What
Atlanta
time?
Christian. We played. Yeah,
Times have changed.
absolutely so.
Yeah. Wow. What a trailblazer. So, all right. So you finished your college experience at Charleston,
Yep.
um, did a few odd ends and things, and then you decided to go into the business that you're still today, one of the most
Yes.
popular,
So
respected teaching professionals in Atlanta. I guess you're obviously we're lucky being in Atlanta because of all the great teaching pros that we've had. You know, people like Peter Howell and folks like that, the G and
very much
Pride
so.
Evans and GPTA. But why was it a sense of giving back to the sport or trying to help others? Why did you
So
decide to go down in that route?
that's a good question. Okay, so my parents encouraged me to get a real job with insurance, and so they could leave Atlanta and they moved to Hilton Head, South Carolina. So I went to paralegal school, got a paralegal degree, and worked in a law firm, which was a real job. Never liked it. Met a lot of wonderful people, met wonderful attorneys. My house, while I was with them, they handled the closing, which was a nice bonus. And when mom and dad moved to Hilton Head, now feeling like their daughter, was stable and had
Right.
a job with good insurance and retirement plan. And then I was teaching on the weekends, and it was just always something I really enjoyed doing. So the firm, I had gotten a point where I was doing a little bit of everything, and I wasn't really doing my job description, not from my choice, but they just used me a lot in a lot of different areas.
That's a
And
normal job.
so I sat down with
Yeah,
excuse me?
that's a normal job, right?
Yes. Well, it's
What the
funny
description
because
is and what you end up doing. Yeah.
I was really in estates and wills, but they had me handling the summer law clerks and handling um, the entertainment for them, and when they go on a retreat, and handling where they'd stay and who roomed with who, and then the food we'd have on Fridays for the summer associates. And finally the senior partner, or I guess you'd call it the managing partner, sat me down in my interview, and he said, Lee, you're really not doing what you were supposed to do here, and it's not your fault, but we're going to have to put you at something more specific, or if you'd like to find something else to do, we will give you a great recommendation. So I started talking to other people about using their private tennis courts and finding places to teach. And it looked like I could do it. And so I did. I left the firm on a great note, had great recommendations, and I started teaching because it's what I knew how to do. And I had gotten my professional teaching certification while I was in college. Thank you, mother. My mother suggested I do that. So I did that. And so I had that and just started kind of with hitting lessons. And then you have to find a location to teach. And I was teaching probably at 5 or 6 different courts, as you can imagine, which is what most pros do in the beginning. But I was very fortunate, and I got on with the Westminster schools, and I was teaching their after-school tennis program there. And then I was there for probably 30 years. And then Brookwood Hills, I started there. Gosh, I mean, they only have 2 courts, but I mean, I probably over 40 something years ago, I started there teaching in the mornings. Kind of there are some ladies, but most people in Brookwood Hills belong to private clubs. So it was hard to get people committed to have teams down there. So then when 2020 hit with the pandemic, Westminster sent me home, no after school extracurricular activities. So I picked up at Brookwood Hills and just started kind of where I left off. Westminster tried to bring me back a couple of times, and because of logistics and masks with the kids, and we had to put them on the bus to take them to the courts, I just said, no, I'm pretty much ensconced in Brookwood Hills and I'm going to stay there. So it's something I love to do. And I'm obviously, hopefully, because I've been doing it and I make a living, I'm decent at it. I try my best. So it just turned out really well for all involved. It's just, I don't sit down very well. So this is a sport that I'm moving all the time, that I can teach. I'm outside, which is in its own element that's why I had to go to a dermatologist appointment this morning. But it has its downfalls. But all in all, it's a wonderful sport, and I thoroughly enjoy teaching it, and I will continue to teach it until I physically can't teach it.
Right. So when you started, I don't imagine there were a ton of female teaching
No,
pros out there.
I can kind of count them on one hand.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, obviously
gosh,
you probably weren't conscious of that when you got started, but looking back, that was
yes,
quite a
because
risk you
the
took.
the few female pros, and I teach in the Buckhead area, so there's a lot more pros outside in Alpharetta and Roswell because there's more tennis communities.
Right.
In Atlanta, because of the real estate being so expensive, we don't have that luxury. So unless you're teaching at a private court, a country club, or some type of community club, it's really, and I don't want to be one of those pros that just goes to all these different places, and that's fine when I'm in my 20s and early 30s, but after that it gets really old. So I did go to a couple of the female pros, Cindy Brady being one of them, and talk to her about it. She encouraged me, she gave me some names, she put my name out there. We had on West Wesley over here in Buckhead, there were two courts across the street from each other, two private courts, and we would teach teams, and after an hour they'd cross the street and I'd teach that team for the next hour and she'd teach the one I just had for an hour. And we would do that, and it worked out really well. We taught, we got a lot done in the period of time because the ladies could just go from one court to the other. But then I've been really lucky because I've had Westminster is where I've really taught mostly the past, I'd say 30 more, almost 40 years after school. And then Brookwood Hills is where I teach in the mornings. I'm just real fortunate to have a location to be able to teach and call home. And that's
Right.
really what a pro wants.
Sure.
Because
Well,
then that
absolutely.
way they can work with the club and the students there, and you don't feel like, you're teaching one person and that person goes to two or three other pros. And I was sorry to have to leave Westminster. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, but I understood what they were going through with the outdoor sports during that time period.
Right.
But I met a lot of wonderful people, and still to this day teach some of the families I met there. So now that's primarily where I am, is Brookwood Hills. I still go to, I taught Richard Howell's niece the other day at their private court. They have at their home, which was kind of fun. And I still do that now and then. I'll go to, private homes and teach somebody, which is fun because you get to see courts that you never knew existed when you've been driving by there for the
Right.
past, 25 years. You also go, oh my gosh, there's a tennis court behind that house.
Yeah. Amazing. How
And
they
there's a
how they
lot of
wedge
them
that
in,
in
in
there. So
Buckhead. Yes.
how they wedge that in there. Amazing. Hopefully it's north south.
Yes. But you would be so surprised how many tennis courts they are, that people have private tennis courts there are in this area. Simply, like I told you, there's not a lot of community clubs that have tennis courts and swimming pools because of the real estate.
Right. No, that's true.
So
That's
these
true.
families just build their own and build their own
Yeah.
pool and build their own tennis court, and that way they don't have to worry about it.
If you can do it, do it. So
Absolutely.
at some point, maybe you and I will have that luxury. Not anytime soon, though, I think, but
Exactly.
we'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see. Well, Lee, one of many things you're known for, excuse me, is your positivity, enthusiasm, and your ability to bring people together and excited about playing. And I think that's maybe why uh, team events are so important to you. And you're the first person to raise your hand. I'll captain it. I'll lead it. No problem.
Yep.
Um, all your ALTA teams, not just the ones that won, like every team you've captained, and obviously where we kind of crossed paths was when you were started captaining our Callen Cup team for Team
Yes.
Georgia on the women's side with Chris Busser. You guys have done a tremendous job. What about team events and kind of leading folks and getting people to come together for a common purpose? What about
Well,
that attracts you to that position?
Darren, it's kind of like I've tried to explain it to people. It's kind of like college, being on a college team, especially when the men and women for Georgia are playing at the same location. You feel like you're cheering for your college team because you know all these players.
Right.
And if you don't know them, you get to know them. And it becomes just a nice, tightly knit group of supporters. And I feel like I I know, especially the ones 45 and over. I feel like I know the better players in Georgia and know who to ask and who's dependable and who's a great sport and who would represent the team well. And sometimes when I get to my 35 players, I have to ask other 35 players who they recommend because I just don't know these young girls that have been out of college
Right.
for 8, 9 years. I just don't know them. So, and then my 75s, it's the same type of thing. I have to ask my 75 players, and now my 75 players are like 81. So, but they're just everybody's there for the same reason, and it's to represent Georgia and give back to Georgia. And for me, it just makes me so proud to have these players that do represent Georgia in such a positive, sportsmanlike, high level manner. And all of my ladies do that. I don't ask anybody that I think would ever compromise those, that high level. And it's just really benefited Georgia as well as me being captain. And if people recommend people that I really don't think would be appropriate, I say thank you very much. I'll write their name down. And if I don't follow through, that's sometimes I get better players, but sometimes I just don't feel 100% comfortable. And if I'm going to be captain, then I'm going to make sure that all of these players, which I have 25 players, if they're going to play for Georgia, then they're going to be top level players that have a wonderful attitude, great sportsmanlike behavior, and are supportive of not only just our women, but our men as well, because we have such a great men's team. We love going over there and cheering for the men.
Yeah, you guys have done an amazing job. Not just the success, put that
Yes,
aside of let's say the Callan Cup, but the players that have played for Georgia, and the connectivity between the players and our organization is
yes.
one reason
And
why
we
I've
have
tried to support you guys as much as I
you
try.
do
So
a
really appreciate that.
USTA. You really do, Darren. We couldn't do it with you, and John was so supportive. And we know that we can look for you for support, and that means the world to us. And we're able to lure in these players, and because they talk to the other players that have been there, and the other players talk about how wonderful it is to be on Georgia's team and how proud they are. And so the recruitment process is actually quite easy, unless we have injuries. But people really want to step up and play for Georgia, which speaks highly of USTA Georgia.
Uh, Tip of the cap. We appreciate you and Chris Bustert's efforts on that, and all the players that have played for the team over the years, and start recruiting for
Yes,
next year. Good luck.
absolutely.
So, how many Alta titles have you won? Do you have
Oh,
a number?
dear gosh, dear. Okay, now you've got to remember, I'm 65 years old and I play in 3 to 4 leagues
Huh?
during the year. So
It's over
you
100, isn't it?
calculate it, and it's over that. Yes, I have been so fortunate and been on so many really good teams. I've captained a lot of them, yes, but it's the players that I am able to get on my teams that speak for themselves. And I have been very fortunate to have held a lot of city final plates. Yes, a lot of them.
Yeah, somebody told me that you could hold dinner for Congress with all the
Oh
plates you
no,
have. You could
I
serve
don't
salad
even.
on all
It's
those
it's
plates.
so funny because the guy, I know most all the ALTA coordinators now, obviously, because I see him at city finals and I work with them, and even the guy that takes pictures. But when they hand me the plates for my team, she says, I know that you're going to give a lot of these back to recycle, but just hold them for the picture.
Right.
And I would say most of my teams give back at least 50 to 60% of the plates back, because Darren, you can just do with so many plates,
Right. Right.
and it's one, and I'm grateful for ALTA and we appreciate it. But if ALTA can use them for other people and
Sure.
recycle them, I'd much rather than them gather dust or be on somebody's table for a yard sale, which I
Yeah.
hear probably you can probably get at least $5 or $10 for those plates. But it's the same with the ALTA bag tags. I just recycle them or give them back. And sometimes they'll
Right.
call me. ALTA office will call me and say, we're running out of ALTA bag tags. Do you have any? And I'll say, yeah. I said, I'll be glad to. And I'll bring them like a couple of bags of them. But the plates, they know that I'm going to give most of them back. But it doesn't take away from the thrill of winning the city finals. It's still a
Sure.
wonderful feeling.
Sure. No, it's another great tennis organization. We're promoting the sport in all sorts of different ways. So I've been a big supporter of theirs, and they've been a big supporter of yours.
Absolutely. It works
So
both ways, and they
yeah,
speak highly of y'all. And it's nice that y'all work together so well. It really is.
we're trying. We're trying. Some days it's easy, it's harder than others, but we're
I know
trying.
it
So
does. It does. I know, especially when your seasons overlap.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, um, so you see on the screen, you're former president of a great organization, Friends of Bitsy Grant. So obviously, the
Yes.
Bitsy Grant Tennis Center is a legendary organization, not just in Georgia, the South, and the United States in general. Um, what what about Bitsy Grant Tennis Center is special to you? It's obviously a special place to play. I'm sure you played hundreds of matches there over the
Yes.
years. And
So I started playing when I started playing tournaments. Obviously, I played at Bitsy Grant probably since I was 8 years old, because it was one of the places that hosted Southern tournaments, like Southern Closed. They may have done a Southern Open, but I remember playing several Southern Closed tournaments there. And you can just make a list of the pros. I mean, Bailey Brown. Um, there's Peter Howell. There's a list of pros that have taught there. I've never taught there. I've never worked for it. Well, of course, that when the city ran it, that's a whole different thing. But um, it's just an institution, and that's the best way to say it. And being president of Bitsy Grant, if you'll note, every team I play on is out of Bitsy Grant, because I will always support Bitsy Grant. No matter, I don't care if they don't even have a level that I play, I certainly will try to get that
right,
level up, or tell them as soon as they get a double A team, I'll play on it, but I really do support them. And I've gone through, gosh, I mean, I can remember junior matches I've played at Bitsy Grant, where I split sets and I was close enough to run home, take a shower, and come back to finish the third set. It's just a wonderful. I mean, and I think about it now, you could never do that.
well,
But
you got 10
I,
minutes.
yeah, it is. That's what I had, and I would get home and be back within 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, why
So
not?
it's just, and then being president, it's I mean, we've gone through a lot of changes, as you know, because before the city took over, it was thriving. Now it's doing great now. Please don't get me wrong. Agape's doing a great job. But when UTA was there, they worked really closely with us, and I was just seemed to be, I was more familiar faces. And then, of course, when the
Right.
city ran it, was the worst time possible ever for Bitsy Grant. And they closed it during the pandemic. Shirley, I forget her mayor has escaped me.
Yeah, it was a tough
But
time.
no,
Yeah,
it was Keisha Lance Bottom. No,
yeah.
is that right? Yeah, Keisha Lance Bottoms, I think, was the mayor during that time. And she closed it completely. And Bobby Jones Golf was open the entire time. So Bitsy Grant really deteriorated during that time. The courts deteriorated. So then we had to try to build it back up. And once the city, we would put money into it, but the city was uncomfortable with us putting money into it, because then we could say we did this and you didn't. So finally, when Agape took over, they've really done a great job, because there's a lot of tennis for that area. And I work with Agape, and we have put in awnings on. We've redone the awnings on the clay courts. We installed 5 new awnings on the hard courts that were in desperate need of shade.
Right.
And we've put in a new deck that collapsed, and we've tried to work with them. And I feel like we're going to have to either have some fundraisers, or we're going to have to, it's going to end up, we've got to raise some more money in order,
Sure.
because we're using all our money. Because we haven't been able to do fundraisers for so long when the city ran it. So, but we will do the best we can to keep it at a high level and maintain that, and work with Agape to do that.
Yeah, just a historic center, and we just got to keep it going, right?
Yes, and we'll do the
That's
best
the
we
most
can,
important
and
thing we can do.
yes, and
Yeah,
it's as long as we can help them and work with them, we will certainly do so. And they have been very agreeable to a
great,
lot of things we've asked them.
great. Well, hopefully that'll continue, and we wish you the best with that endeavor. So Lee, the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame is a very special place. I mean, in terms of the members of it, I always tell this, I put the members of this Hall of Fame up against anybody of any Hall of Fame of any sport. Just amazing group of people of all different types of backgrounds. But when you got the phone call that you were going to join the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame with the class of 22, what was your reaction, and what does the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame mean to you?
Well, it's all about, Darren, it's about recognition, which we all need. And as a human need, we want someone to tell us that we've done a good job, and we notice that you've done this really good job, and your hard work is paying off. And I certainly would have done everything the same, but it is nice to have an entity recognize that and say, you've done this. You please don't think that we just greatly appreciate it. And so many people have benefited from you doing this or this, and it's just really nice. It's like being I guess sort of like being a teacher, some type of a school teacher, and seeing your student do really well. And I feel like the Hall of Fame has kind of, they you have to think you have to be 45 to be in there, but they wait, and then it's something that it's nice when you don't expect it, and you continue to put your head down and do everything that you're doing, and then you lift your head up and say, oh my gosh, I'm just so honored, I'm so flattered that you have even recognized me. So I'm very grateful, and I think Richard does a great job, and Dom helps so much, and you certainly. And it means I can't tell you what it means. It means the world, and it is something that I will always cherish and be grateful for.
Well, we're very lucky to have you here in the Peach State. Please keep up the great work. We very much appreciate your promotion of the game and all you're giving back to it on a not just on a daily basis. So every time you hit the courts, you're helping somebody enjoy the game better. So, Lee, thanks so much for joining us today.
Darren, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
I hope so soon. Okay, folks, that is catching up with Lee King, member of the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame, class of 2022. We really much appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for the next episode shortly. Thanks for watching.